Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake, and I thought we'd have just sort of a loose one today. First up, pop this in the comments. Gonna do a Friday peace talks, even though it's Thursday. If you would like to put in a piece of media that we have a look at, let's do that. I feel like being just a little more loose today. Generally speaking, I've been looking at all the stuff that's going around. Zoe Zephyr being a hero, the Tennessee 3. There are so many heroes in this age. I'm delighted by it, but I also don't want to pick and choose. I want to talk about what you guys want to talk about, ultimately. And for most of this stuff, what you can do about it, it's similar enough that we can talk about that on the fly. I also it struck me like midway through the day that we probably should talk about Ron Desantis a little bit. This guy is not going to be a political leader. Not really. But he is a great example of what the Republican Party will be, nonetheless. He's a follower of Trumpism. You don't have to be a follower of Trump to be a follower of Trumpism. The guy is a bigot. The guy is a fascist. He's an authoritarian above all else. He decides, or rather pretends like he's decided, right and wrong, based off whether or not it benefits him and his agenda. His agenda is not to help the American people in any way. His agenda is just to further his own political career. So I'm going to start recording. I thought, let's watch a little bit of the DeSantis announcement from yesterday. Well, first of all, it's good to see all of you. Let's start with that proper, huh? The anti-corporatist. Oh, my word. Oh, you're in Utah. I didn't realize. Well, good to see you, sir. I apologize about YouPorn. If you're not familiar, as of today, because of a law Utah passed, YouPorn no longer is available there. Instead, if you go to that website to handle your business, you get a message that explains why the website is no longer being offered there. Hilarious, but also absolutely silly. And I apologize for having pinned your message. There we go. I've now pinned the link to the Google Doc if you guys want to share content. Oh, I'm good. Please don't call me sir. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can resist. I sir and ma'am everyone. All right, but let's get down to the nitty and the gritty. I want to look at this DeSantis announcement because it could not be a better example of what the modern day Republican Party looks like. Oh shoot! You know what? Why don't we start it off with the breaking news? Let me try that again, because this will be relevant immediately. So we had some breaking news in the Trump documents case. I thought we should have a gander. Let's just jump straight over to MSNBC with the announcement. Here we go. So this is MSNBC talking about recent revelations that will come as a surprise to absolutely no one that has followed Donald Trump's personal career, business career, his professional let's try that again. His personal business career or his public politics career. It won't be a surprise to you. He's a con artist and a liar. Thoroughly a liar. It looks like he lied further about the documents case. We knew this from the start, but let's just get it confirmed officially.
We start with breaking news. Legal heat engulfing Donald Trump. Donald Trump is in some real trouble in the classified documents probe as more legal vets predict an indictment is coming, even jail time. New exclusive bombshell reporting from the Washington Post. Trump workers reportedly moving a Mar-a-Lago box one day before the DOJ came for the documents and allegedly carried out a, quote, dress rehearsal for moving sensitive papers even before his office received the May 2022 subpoena. This new information showing calculated moves by the Trump team directly undercuts Trump's argument that he didn't think he was doing anything wrong. Remember, told Sean Hannity he declassified the documents with his mind.
I did declassify, yes.
Okay. Is there a process? What was your process to declassify?
It doesn't have to be a process, as I understand it. You know, there's different people say different things, but as I understand it, there doesn't have to be. If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it.
Yeah, he's not Professor X. That's not a thing. The Washington Post reporting investigators have come to view the Trump team's actions and timing as suspicious and an indication of possible obstruction. Shocker. This coming on the heels of reports that special counsel Jack Smith is wrapping up the probe. Bloomberg reporting he is poised to announce possible criminal charges in the days or weeks after Memorial Day. Multiple outlets reporting Trump's allies are preparing for a federal indictment. Trump's lawyers making a last-minute plea to meet with Attorney General Merrick Garland, sending him a letter asking him to meet at his, quote, earliest convenience to discuss the ongoing injustice that is being perpetrated by your special counsel and his prosecutors. Look, it's clear Trump is rattled, already indicted on criminal charges in New York, and now facing a very real threat of another indictment from the DOJ. His former White House lawyer even predicting he will go to jail for obstruction. Joining me now is former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti and Pulitzer Prize-winning Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson. I will start with you, Eugene, because...
Hold up, Eugene. Look, let's just recap that real quick. What was Trump in trouble for initially? Trump was in trouble for obstructing justice. It looked, the publicly available information, no matter how you cut it up, meant that Trump was guilty. That's not a tremendous surprise. The debate being had, again, based on just the public information, the debate being had was how guilty. He was saying that he interpreted the law differently than, it was written. And et cetera, et cetera. We were inevitably going to go to court about this. This is another level. This is not obstructing based on a misinterpretation of the law. This is showing a knowledge that he was doing something wrong. That's a different ballgame. Now, it might not really seem like news if you're on the left. We know who this guy is, and we assumed, I think, most of us assumed that this was the sort of mentality the guy had the whole time. But it's a different thing entirely for the government to acknowledge that, for that to be part of the actual investigation. That's why I think to lefties, it is news. We've had to sit through lifetimes, multiple lifetimes worth of, depending on when you were born, you might have seen the tail end of some and beginning of others, of the powerful people in our country, the people who run our country, be they business executives or politicians, getting passes on stuff like this, with the government only willing to investigate at all the lightest version of whatever they did. So this is huge. This is great. This is one of many, many, many illegal things this guy's done that he is now facing consequences for. Truly, I know it's exhausting, but rejoice, man. We're going to see ugly stuff. We're going to see the blood and guts of the justice system. But understand that it's surgery. And to fix this country, we're going to see a hell of a lot of mess. Know that even though it's ugly, it's a good thing.
Honestly, I just want a larger political perspective on this. I've never been a fan of saying, okay, we know Trump's really in trouble now. But politically speaking, the most obvious crime that he has been committing all along, which is having documents he's hiding, what are the potential implications of this new reporting on his 2024 prospects and the number of Republicans who seem to still want to attach themselves to him?
Well, I'll give you my answer by speaking rather than just with my mind, like the president does with declassification. Look, the first indictment seems to have strengthened the bond between the Republican base, at least the MAGA base, and Donald Trump. I would not be surprised if that happened again with an indictment on the classified documents case. I would not be surprised. Now, Republicans who are detachable from Trump, Republicans who have already
that delay is
basically
weird.
washed
Hold
their
up.
hands of.
Let's refresh this.
We start with breaking news. Legal heat engulfing Donald Trump.
Here we go.
Well, I'll give you my answer by speaking rather than just with my mind, like the president does with declassification. Look, the first indictment seems to have strengthened the bond between the Republican base, at least the MAGA base, and Donald Trump. I would not be surprised if that happened again with an indictment on the classified documents case. I would not be surprised. Now, Republicans who are detachable from Trump, Republicans who have already basically washed their hands of him, and perhaps more important, independents, if he gets to the general election, independents who might still have a question about Donald Trump. I can't imagine who that is. For them, yeah, this is a big deal. If you're indicted under federal charges for what you did with classified documents, who knows what the charges would be, but these are very serious charges. But as far as
Yeah, just really want to address that whole issue. Will Republicans support him more if he's charged with crimes? Maybe. Certainly, it seems more likely in the short term. But we've been talking about this from the beginning, and bear it in mind. These people judge morality based on consequences. They need the American conservative. They need a very simplistic set of cause and effect laid out for them, and they will not believe that somebody has done something wrong unless they suffer for it. If somebody steals candy from babies professionally, and they are given $1 billion for doing so, conservatives will assume that it is right to steal candies from babies. Similarly, anything Donald Trump has done has not resulted in punishment. So we know they're going to assume he's in the right until he's actually being punished for it. Similarly, we can't even joke flirt with the idea of holding back on punishment because it might help him politically. There's also the other side of that. If him getting convicted and punished resulted in the American people, 100% of them, suddenly deciding, let's just say, so there's still some objection, 99% of them, suddenly deciding that they adored Donald Trump and they were very proud of him and all the crimes that he did, and that's how the country should be run, with those crimes. Well, guess what? The way our country is supposed to work is that we do what the people say. So if it should turn out that the American people really, really like all the crimes Donald Trump did, then he should be president. It sucks, but we have to start dealing with reality. Political opinion does not change facts. That is the era we need to leave, and we should be ashamed that we were ever in that era. So I don't think they're seriously suggesting that we factor in what Republicans feel about these charges as to whether or not he should be charged. But that's the impression I think a lot of commentators accidentally let their audience leave with. And wash it from the conversation. Should not exist.
The MAGA base is concerned. I think it's going to be, I'm being persecuted. Yes, he's being persecuted. It's the judiciary is weaponized and go Trump.
This is shocking to me. Renato, the idea that Trump didn't know that he had all these documents had always been something that I didn't really buy. But the revelation that his people were sort of moving and shuffling things around with full knowledge that it was being looked for, that should make this more or less an open and shut case. And for the first time, we're hearing the words
that audio's
jail.
Killing me.
What do you think the implications of that are for Trump's team? I mean, obviously they're concerned. They're trying to talk to Merrick Garland, but jail is a word that we really haven't heard associated with Trump since he left the White House 3 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, it wasn't just that they were moving documents. They were doing it the day before the FBI and DOJ was coming. I mean, it is very suspicious. You don't need to be a lawyer or prosecutor to see that, right? I think a jury would see through that right away. I do think this is totally different and much more serious than the Manhattan case. And I think part of it is because the penalty here would be a very significant prison sentence. If you just look at other people who've been sentenced for similar behavior, there's a contractor, a federal contractor, who kept documents in his home, willfully kept them in his home, and he went to prison for, years. So I think, here where you have obstruction of justice and dress rehearsal, we just heard about a moment ago, you'd have to think it would be higher. And the president, I think, frankly, should be held more accountable. And I think a lot of judges would consider it that way. So I think Trump's lawyers right now are scrambling, and with good reason. I would be the same way if I was on their legal team. I think this would be a very difficult case to defend. And purely from a legal perspective, I'm not Eugene.
Oh, that hurts. There we go. Yeah, that is the only other thing on that I want to talk about. Thing number one, to recap, it does not matter what the political reaction is as far as the Department of Justice should be concerned. We should really, really stress that every opportunity that we get. The Department of Justice right now is an extraordinarily politically influenced organization. We cannot allow that to continue. Thing number two, exactly what that second commentator said. The second guest there said. I don't even, Tony, whatever the hell, I don't care. There will come a time when this stuff is punished. And there will be two times where we decide whether or not the leaders in our country are operating under the same justice system. Number one is if they are charged at all and we have now broken that seal. We've gotten past that. Good. Trump can be charged. Excellent. He's been charged. Good. Thing number 2 is, how will the punishment be affected by their position of power? Again, there tends to be comically light punishments. In the United States, in particular, we do a con where we charge people a fixed amount of money, regardless of how much money they personally have or have access to. And if you charge somebody like Trump $1 million for doing something, doesn't matter what it is, you have not really deterred them from doing that thing. If Trump gets house arrest as opposed to a year in prison like that other guy got, then again, we are choosing to say with our court rulings that he deserves to be treated lighter than everyone else. We can't do that. We just can't run a country that way. I agree with the second commentator. If you are given a position of responsibility like President of the United States, you must be held to a higher standard, not a lower one. It's that simple. Watch this space and be ready to watch this story, I should say. Doesn't have to be here. Just keep an eye on the various Trump court cases. And when sentencing rolls around, we're talking about months to years down the line. But for some of these, maybe months, because it's pretty open and shut. When it rolls around, be ready to protest. I'm talking about in that space before the judge decides, or after the judge decides guilt, and before sentencing. Get out on the street before we've even heard what the judge says and demand a harsh sentence. Should that, according to the books, affect what the judge will do? No, but it will. And we need to take this country by the scruff of the neck. We need to take serious steps to getting it fixed. So I'm sorry we started out with a bit of a bummer. We're going to go into the Desantis stuff now, but that one is important. Be ready to get out there. Be ready to be loud about this. And take heart that the Department of Justice, so far, is actually pursuing the full extent of these crimes, it would seem. I'm excited to see what y'all have to say about this. It won't help him, says the anti-corporatist, with independents, and he can't win without them. True. Dawned on Me says, I feel there's far more Americans that want justice. Wholeheartedly agreed. Yeah, I think you're right. Wicked Foxy Dragon says, take it by the scruff of the neck, just like I do with Zoe when she won't stop talking to Jake. By the way, Zoe's a good girl. She is a good girl. This is known. We gonna talk pudding. I'm here for it, says Jess Rush. Excellent. Well, let's talk pudding. This guy. Oh. All right, I'm going to redo the intro because I want to record this. That's right, Jess Rush. We're talking old Puddin' Fingers Desantis. I'll tell you what, this guy is pretty exemplary of the kind of Republican we will have from now on. I believe firmly that the Republican Party is dying. It cannot, it has shown the next generation that there is no reason to vote for them at all. They don't do anything for anybody. The Republican Party relies entirely on the misconceptions they worked so hard to instill in the last couple of generations. God help me, including mine. Although less of us fell for it because more of us got screwed by them being victorious in so many political fields, venues, I guess. But Ron DeSantis is their future. He's what remains of them. It's authoritarian talking points. It's forcing others to live the way the worst of us want to live. The absolute scum of America. And he's going to try to appeal to them. What does that look like? That looks like grouping up with other like-minded psychopaths whose interests align and fighting everybody whose interests don't align, including other like-minded psychopaths. It's going to be fun. It's like hitting fast forward on a Republican career watching DeSantis, because he is through and through a modern Republican. Let's look at his announcement for his running for president and show you what an event, and if you extrapolate, a country run by these people looks like.
It's where woke goes to die.
DeSantis, now officially a 2024 contender, is knee-deep in this kind of impenetrable sphere of contemporary right-wing online.
Oh, my God. Well, that's some Chris Hayes for you. Let's try this here.
Do you remember that time that billionaire Elon Musk unveiled the new Tesla Cybertruck? And when he went to demonstrate the vehicle's supposedly bulletproof glass, they smashed two of its windows, even though they weren't supposed to break? Today's Twitter rollout of the Ron DeSantis campaign went kind of like that.
Now it's quiet.
We want to welcome you to this historic Twitter Spaces event, and more broadly, a first in the history of social media. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce two individuals who've done more to loosen the grip. Sorry about that. We've got so many people here.
So let's see.
So if we just keep crashing, huh?
Well, it's certainly an incredible honor to have Governor DeSantis make this stark announcement.
Yo, it was like 20 minutes of that. Trump had the golden escalator. Ron DeSantis got the world's most embarrassing 404 error. Over 20 minutes of technical difficulties that sounded like this. That is how the Florida governor's big entrance into the Republican presidential primary will be forever remembered. DeSantis chose to launch his campaign not during a campaign rally, not on a televised event, but on Twitter.com with Elon Musk. And why? Maybe because Musk and Twitter are the best audience for the DeSantis brand crusade against woke.
I view the wokeness as a form of cultural Marxism.
I think it goes back to this woke mind virus that's infected the left and all these other institutions.
We will never surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where...
Heads up. Cultural Marxism is yet another of the racist dog whistles that this punk uses. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm of the belief that we should start memorizing neo-Nazi talking points, such as when people say globalist. I noticed that has died down a bit because we've been repeating, I think, we being the sane Americans, including those running, national news shows, have been repeating the true fact, that globalist really just means Jew or Jew-friendly. Similarly with cultural Marxism, that's just a far-right talking point that doesn't mean anything of value to the average voter. Really ask yourself if if it has any, like, can you tell me, how about this? Can you tell me, or can any voter out there tell me what cultural Marxism literally means? Just being kind to others, as far as I can tell.
Woke goes to die.
DeSantis now officially a 2024 contender.
Similarly, woke just means being aware of the way the system works. Every time these people say you shouldn't be woke, ask what you should be instead of woke. You should be asleep? You should be ignorant? Yeah, that sounds pretty Republican to me.
Is knee-deep in this kind of impenetrable sphere of contemporary right-wing online culture war fights. Fighting the woke mind virus aligns quite well with Twitter. Its new owner, Elon Musk, has turned the platform into a right-wing forum where he also rails against the woke mind virus, the same ideology embraced by DeSantis. The Florida governor, who is apparently trapped in this online cultural woke bubble, has chosen, for example, to fight with Disney for daring to speak out against him. Even one of his speechwriters, a guy that he chose to hire, has effusively praised notorious white nationalist Nick Fuentes. That's the guy that's writing his words. I can't tell you for sure, but it does not sound like Ron DeSantis' messaging is necessarily resonating with the Republican electorate. Two new polls released today showed DeSantis trailing Donald Trump by roughly 30 points. Former Republican strategist Tim Miller recently pointed out DeSantis' campaign is a lot like Senator Elizabeth Warren's failed 2020 campaign, which relied on a smaller version of the electorate, a narrow but vocal audience. Tim Miller is a former RNC spokesman and current writer-at-large for The Bulwark. Debbie Moore-Cassell-Powell is a former Democratic congresswoman in Florida. Both join me now. Tim, let me start with you and let me say something you say in the piece, which is that the point you're making, the comparison, is by no means substantive at all. It's purely at this level of like where you're trying to fit in the primary. And one of the points you make is Elizabeth Warren was sort of had this campaign that was electric to a certain portion of the Democratic base that proved not to be big enough to win the primary. You think DeSantis is the same problem. And before we get to that, oh my God, can you believe what happened?
Well, I'm just thrilled because I don't know if you remember, but I was part of the John Huntsman presidential campaign announcement. We misspelled our candidate's own name on the credentials. We spelled it John, which to me was so shameful and embarrassing. And by comparison, we crushed it. So thank you to the Ron DeSantis team for making.
Lord knows I appreciate some humility, for God's sake. We'll leave it on that for a moment. Yeah. They're doing a great job of breaking down why DeSantis is not generally a strong candidate, and that Elizabeth Warren point is so good. It's spot on. I knew a lot of folks that were like fervently for Elizabeth Warren, to the point that they, like, for a while, they hated Bernie Sanders. That's how behind Elizabeth Warren they were. They saw Bernie as an obstacle rather than an ally. Now, I'm just as guilty. There was a couple of weeks there where I saw Warren as an obstacle. And I got over it eventually because, I was reminded that this is America where primaries are supposed to be competitive and yada, yada, yada. If you can't beat a friend in a friendly competition, you got no business going against the true enemies. So, it's a good point. And that truly is DeSantis. Trump was, for the right, exactly what Obama was for the left. Try to deal with that. Trump promised change. True change. And he didn't deliver it. There's a lot of folks that voted for Obama and then voted for Trump, believe it or not. This class of people that didn't used to participate in politics that now do, largely, whether they wind up on the left or right, they largely have that same complaint. They're sick of the oligarchs stealing from us, and they're sick of patsies in Washington obeying them. And they, if you follow Trump or Obama, it just comes down to culturally, what were you used to already? Did you come from a culture of kindness, of decency, of morals? Then you voted for Obama. If you came from a culture where cruelty is praised, then you voted for Trump. And if you didn't give an F about either of those cultures and you truly just, you didn't understand politics, but you heard two people that seemed to be shaking things up, then you voted for both. And you were disappointed both times. Bear in mind, that is what we're dealing with. So who's DeSantis in all this? Who's this DeSantis guy? Tim Kaine. That's who DeSantis is. Somebody who's doing the shtick of the last guy, not as well. That's what he is. A significant political force. Nearly a vice president, but not a game changer. And the way he runs, the way he ran his little announcement here, that's how he's going to run everything. That's how he's running Florida. Just a disaster. An absolute disaster. It's like if I tried to run Florida, only more hateful. Nothing's where it's supposed to be. Disney's packing up and leaving. Although if it were me, they'd be leaving because I would have abused my power to try to get a gander at Walt Disney's head. I'd be power mad. I'd be like, let me see that Frozen thing. Bullshit. I believe you got it. It's the same thing. I don't recommend either. His presidential campaign is going to be a source of hilarity, and let's put it out there right now. How long do you think it's going to last? 4 months? Do you think it's going to make it through the end of the summer? 6 months? Is it going to go all the way to 2024? I think the amount that Trump is in legal trouble really depends, really informs that answer. I think he's playing the long game, except I don't know why he announced now. If he was truly playing the long game, he should have just waited and waited and waited and waited. Just let Trump get thoroughly screwed and then run. But, oh well.
Our little small gap there look very manageable by comparison, because that was just an epic disaster. I like you, Chris, I'm a Twitter addict. It took me a while to figure out how to get in because the first 2 or 3 spaces they started crashed. So I was like in an old one, just listening to random ringing noises and people whispering. It was an utter disaster. Half the audience disappeared by the time they got it going. And the messaging, and I think this speaks to the Elizabeth Warren thing. And like you said, this is not about the substance. This is about, from a strategic standpoint, Elizabeth Warren, I think, made a mistake, thinking that she could triple down on the very excited, college-educated, progressive base and what their concerns were, and spoke in their language, whereas Joe Biden was more successful reaching out to a broader part of the Democratic coalition, and he ends up winning. DeSantis now is stuck. He's in this Twitter space with David Sachs and Elon Musk, two a 100 millionaire and a billionaire who don't like their fellow rich tech people because they think they're too woke. They have all these weird concerns about digital currency and ESG and woke board stuff, and they're talking about this in this Twitter space, and it's like, well, I mean, an average MAGA voter living in Spartanburg, South Carolina, first can't get into the space. If they could, all they heard was ringing noises. And then if they finally made it in, they're listening to these 3 rich white guys talk about a very niche concern of super wealthy, college-educated Republican contrarians. And there aren't enough of those to win a primary. I can promise you that much.
Well, and it's interesting, too, that Trump keeps saying, he wants to cut Social Security. That's what Trump says. Right. you want to vote for the guy who wants to cut Social Security and Medicare? That's what this guy wants to do. It's like, yeah, people don't want to. That has a broad appeal. That's the kind of thing that appeals across. There's also, Debbie, you and I spoke about this when I was in Florida, of just who this guy is a candidate. I mean, there's a choice here to court Musk and to do this audio only, but you'd think you want to create some set piece where he looks commanding or he's giving a good speech. And I wonder what you think of just his ability as a communicator outside of the sphere of the Twitter Spaces bubble.
That is a very interesting question. I want to hear her answer uninterrupted, but I want to talk about the last. Oh Christ! The last thing first. Yeah, it was an absolute disaster, and yeah, half the audience did leave. And by the way, that left him with only, I think, 200,000 people. This is after he and Musk both promoted it. Come on, that's not a serious candidate. Also, Patrick Thibodeau, I see you dropped a Majority Report clip in the links there. You know that's the very next thing we're gonna do. But yeah, let's hear her response here.
Well, when it was working, which it sort of barely did.
I mean, the announcement was so well staged. He basically was reading from a piece of paper the announcement, and all the questions that were asked were obviously pre-prepared questions that he had a prepared answer for. I mean, the man cannot communicate well. He cannot connect with a larger audience. He cannot answer tough questions. And so this reminded me really, Chris, of state-sponsored propaganda. I feel like it was a DeSantis-Musk propaganda machine. It was a massive spread of misinformation. They used this platform to talk falsely about COVID, which, as you mentioned, really affected millions of Americans and left millions dead because of the virus. They spread misinformation about the state of the economy. Here in the state of Florida, we just lost a $2 billion investment and more than 2,000 jobs because he's anti-business. He attacks and harasses businesses that are against his ideology. And we have an affordability crisis. Our families are suffering an affordability crisis, and he's done nothing. He is pushing a MAGA agenda and attacking the freedoms of our Floridians all over the state.
It's so interesting, Debbie, because what you just said, some of that, is literally in the bill of particulars that Trump has used against DeSantis. And again, those folks are probably not going to hear it here, and they're not going to hear from you. But again, Trump has proven a feral instinct for the political rhetoric and particularly weakness of the people he's against him, particularly in a Republican primary. And I just think that, there is going to be a little bit of talking past each other as things are set up right now. What do you think?
Well, let me just also mention that the Trump campaign right now has the former DeSantis campaign manager. So she knows him very, very well. And the truth is that Ron DeSantis was in Congress. He was one of the founders of the Freedom Caucus, and he supported ending Medicare, cutting Social Security, repealing the Affordable Care Act. And so he has every right to attack DeSantis on that.
Tim, what do you think?
This is what people don't remember about the Trump 2016 campaign, right? Is he was so extreme on certain issues, but he talked about things that your average talk radio call-in base voter cared about. He was willing to go against the dorky National Review orthodoxies on conservative issues and talk about things like Social Security. And I just think that DeSantis is walking right into the same trap that Ted Cruz.
Another way to put it is Trump campaigns to the left of DeSantis on these things. Guess what? Social Security affects right-wing voters. So Trump has to campaign to the left if he wants to appeal to the people. What DeSantis has to do is make it too confusing for them to pay very close attention to, except it affects their wallets. Older folks tend to vote right-wing because they did not have the benefit of the internet for fact-checking for the first decades of their life. They had to rely on their local news, and for a long time, Fox News was treated like a legitimate organization. So they've had 30 years of Fox News lying to them, of covering for Republican nonsense, of telling them global warming isn't real. Their house isn't going to be flooded. A tornado is not coming for them, except it is. Trump has to campaign to the left of DeSantis on these things that he does not care about. Remember, Trump doesn't care about anything but himself. How much evidence do we need of that? We've had his entire life of that. His entire life as evidence of that. Here's the secret, though. All policies by the left are better because they are real policies. The American right, and by the way, there are countries around the world where this is not true, but by and large, the American right only exists to support the business interests of, at the lowest, multimillionaires. But generally speaking, it's for the billionaires. It's the political party for billionaires, not for people that want to become billionaires. No, it makes it much harder to become a billionaire. But if you already are a billionaire, if you want to make an aristocracy in the United States, if you want to make a caste system where you are treated as royalty and you are already a billionaire and your life is already better measurably than everyone else's that you meet, then you vote Republican. Look, the point is, our job here is to show Republican voters the reality of these policies. Our job here is to communicate to Republican voters, just like we have with Social Security, how these things affect them. The difficulty for the left, and you know what, this guy's sharp. Maybe we'll look at him more if he's on MSNBC or other later. But I want to focus on this part. The job here is to communicate to Republican voters the reality of left policies. And the difficult thing for lefties to do is to not bother talking about how it will help other people, unless helping those other people also helps Republican voters. Good news. These policies that people on the left, people on the center and the left are in favor of, they do help just about every American voter. They help the old, they help the young, they help military folks, they help cops, they help nurses, they help doctors, they help auto manufacturers, they help bread makers, they help newspaper writers, they help newspaper readers, they help everybody. That's what makes it a left policy, is that it was actually thought about with the goal of being good for the American people. Our failure of messaging on the left comes down to our kryptonite, which is trying to get selfish people to care about other groups of people. When we show a black man getting beaten to death by police to GOP voters, and we say, how can you let your fellow Americans be executed by police? GOP voters only hear, you want me to take on more danger for myself to help that guy. I won't. That's what they hear. And that's what they decide. Instead, that needs to be couched as we are costing police, or we're weighing down good police by making their co-workers be a bunch of criminals. We're making it harder to be a good cop because we won't get rid of bad cops. These are the ways we need to start couching these things. You're going to have a harder time getting reliable protection because you don't know if the cop that's going to show up at your door has been kicked out of 3 other departments. We need quality control in our hiring process for police. You want to talk about Medicare for all? Your health care is too expensive. Insurance companies are charging you an arm and a leg and not even covering you when you get sick. It's cheaper for you to have single-payer health care. That's Medicare for all. Make the U.S. government carry that burden, not you. We need to couch all this stuff in terms of selfish decision-making. And that doesn't mean lying about it. It just means presenting the parts of left policy that can be viewed as standalone selfish decisions. And we will get conservative voters. They have been taught to be selfish above all else. They have been taught that other groups are bad. So we need to win them over first and foremost in that regard. We need to get past the lizard part of the brain that tells them that they have to look after they and theirs first. And the great news is we have candidates like Desantis to go up against. Candidates who are reliant on the Republican establishment to get them through. That's Nikki Haley. That's Ron DeSantis. That's Tim Scott. Basically, everybody but Trump is reliant on the establishment for now. It's ugly, but it's a weakness. It's a weakness of the Republican Party that we can and should take advantage of. It's going to be an incredibly annoying year and a half as we have to set aside our own moral outrage when swaying people and learn to pitch kind policy through cruel language, through selfish language at the very least. But I think you'll find the conversations you have become less frustrating because the objections you get will be less objectionable. It is very hard for lefties to imagine that somebody really doesn't care at all about the fate of somebody else. But if we are just talking about the voter that you're talking to's personal fate, the objections you get will be fact-based. Does this do X or Y? They've been told Y. You need to convince them of the truth, which is it does X. It helps them. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. Christ, that was a long one. Anti-corporatist. Sorry, playing Mahjong. Fair enough. Mars Falcon, just like old Jack Burton in that documentary about Big Trouble in Little China, one of the best movies ever. The anti-corporatist. Be careful if you win and the loser wants you to go to a second location to pay up, buddy. You know it's a good crowd when they're fans of Big Trouble in Little China. Oh, my word. Oh, I got one here from Patrick Thibodeau. I can't wait. I cannot wait. In the words of a rap person, everybody hold up while I set this puppy up. Oh, I'm so happy. All right. Folks, we gonna start recording this. I'm excited to do some majority reporting. Some majority reporting. There we go. Got a viewer suggestion from Patrick Thibodeau. Patrick, thank you so much, particularly since it is my favorite show on the internet, The Majority Report with Sam Cedar. These cats are talking about more GOP nonsense. Remember that as we are out here fighting the good fight, those Republicans that got elected in 22 are trying to demonstrate that they're gonna make good on all their conspiracy ranting. Well, the problem is they were talking nonsense. So the people they have up testifying in front of committees are spouting nonsense. And it's pretty easy to demonstrate that live, which is exactly what happens. Let's check it out.
conspiracy theorists. And this is what's interesting. This was happening a decade or so ago when the Republican Party went from being influenced and attempting to use and manipulate the Looney Tunes to actually the Looney Tunes beginning to ascend to power. Like essentially, like they had been so effective, the Republicans, in placating and nurturing a base of fanatics.
I forgot that Sam's normally when I listen to the Majority Report, I really just listen. It's while I'm doing other stuff. I imagine how a great deal of people consume this stream. I forgot Sam's camera was messed up, but for the record, the stream's fine. It's Sammy's camera.
Addicts and crazies that when it came time to run people for Congress, there was only fanatics and crazies left. And frankly, I'm not convinced that one or two of them don't sit on the Supreme Court, for that matter, in terms of where they're getting their information. But here is Representative Eli Crane. Where is Crane from? Arizona. And he is, he's questioning FBI counterintelligence deputy assistant. And again, like, look, I'm happy to defund the FBI and the CIA.
Sure.
We can come up, if we have to reconstitute the organizations on some level.
Side note, how great is it that Republicans have gone so deep into their ranting and raving that they're accidentally supporting things people on the left love. Have you guys had the opportunity to bust that out with a conservative voter? I recently had the opportunity to laugh and say, yeah, sure, let's defund him. Yeah, they couldn't wrap their mind around it. It was delightful. For, legitimate national security reasons, obviously developing intelligence. I'd love, most of the CIA to be basically like the people at 3 Days of the Condor and that like little, where they just read a lot and inform people. But it's pretty funny how this goes off the rails for Representative Crane.
Yeah, and this guy has like magician energy.
The incredible Burt Wonderstone, this guy.
Honestly.
Ms. Murphy, does it concern you, some of the revelations that have been coming out of the Oversight Committee about the millions of dollars that have been paid to the Biden family recently?
I'm not aware of money being paid to the Biden family.
Oh, you're not aware of that at all?
No, sir.
That's interesting. You work for the FBI, right?
Yes, sir, I do, but I would respectfully refer you to the investigators over that case. I'm sure we can get you a brief on that. That is not a case that I handle.
Yeah, well, I don't need a brief on that, ma'am, to know that there are nation states that have paid millions of dollars to the Biden family. And that's one of the reasons that we're having this hearing. That's one of the reasons that Americans are so concerned that they see Chinese spy balloons flying over the U.S. for an entire week. That's why they're so concerned that they see.
Pause it for a second. So the implication is that 5 or 6 years ago, the Chinese paid different members of the Biden family a couple $1 million or whatever, however many $billion is. I don't even know if this is true. I'm just stipulating what he has purported to find. That relatives of Joe Biden's got paid money by some companies that were, owned by the Chinese government, supposedly. And the idea was, listen, if your dad becomes president, which is surely a lock, I'm sure in 2017, everybody was thinking Joe Biden's going to be our next president. All we're going to ask is when the balloons go over, give us 4 or 5 days. That's all we need. That's the story that we're being told here.
All right, let me jump in for a second, not to interrupt Sam Cedar, but here's something that's going to be hard to deal with. So far, what he said, that's very influential to Republican voters. And I think this is the hardest for people in sane America or insane countries around the world to understand. What this guy's doing so far very influential. He is in a position of authority. That is as far as those voters need to be convinced that what he is saying is true. It's just that he's in a position of authority. He doesn't need to make a logical case. He doesn't need to present evidence. He's made the accusation from a position of authority. And that's it. And this other person you have to think about this like a not very bright child. And this other person, well, that's the bad guy because they don't say bad things about Biden. And so here the good guy is insisting that Biden has done bad things. Legal or illegal, set that aside. They don't really care about that. It's just bad things. But I think you're going to find this falls apart.
That's one of the reasons that Americans are so concerned that they see Chinese spy balloons flying over the U.S. for an entire week. That's why they're so concerned that they see these Chinese police stations being set up here. And they're wondering, how could this go on? This doesn't make any sense. And yet, the son of the President of the United States is involved and entangled for many years now in multiple business deals that the president claims he knows nothing about. And you, ma'am, you sit here before the Homeland Security Committee. Our job is to protect the homeland. And you act as if you don't know anything about it.
And you're laughing.
So before they go into their commentary, let's see what they think. Because I know how it looks to us. To us, it looks like that was a bunch of accusations, no evidence. Two right-leaning voters, they're thinking right now, got him. Yes, finally, exposed. That's how they're going to view this.
Do you understand why the American people are concerned, ma'am?
Here we go.
Yes or no?
I understand why American people should be concerned about the threat from the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. Do you see any connections with what I talked about when I was talking about elite capture? Do you see, are you connecting the dots at all?
No, sir.
You don't connect the dots?
Yes,
So your job is to protect the
awake.
American people. I just read you what elite capture is, the summary, the definition of elite capture.
Okay, so right then we have the first moments where I think this begins to fall apart for right-leaning viewers. That look, that appropriate look, like this guy's the dumbest asshole in the universe. Perfect. Good.
Everybody knows in this town what's going on. Everybody knows what's coming out of these committee hearings right now.
Correct that.
You're not making it super clear.
And it's pretty sad.
How about you elaborate
from
again?
somebody who, as a young man, wanted to be a part of your organization.
Oh.
You know what?
Somebody shouldn't. Yeah, you know,
He didn't meet
Representative
the
Crane,
woke quota. these
Representative
days.
Crane should not have taken that truth serum before he did his speaking there.
There's not a lot of a need for a sleight of hand.
It wasn't.
Now, if it seemed to you like it was almost unfair how blasé they can be about these accusations, how blasé, at least in my interpretation of what right-leaning voters are thinking, they can be, at least take solace in the fact that it's equally unfair with how easy it is to dismantle these punks. He looked so weak just then. So now, in their eyes, he goes from somebody who's in a position of authority to a weak man. Good. That is true, for the record. He is a weak man.
Until I was rejected multiple times by the FBI that I realized how corrupt you really were. This is like the classic.
And I'm pretty sure your card was a two of hearts.
And she just stands and stares at him. I mean, he got into a staring match with what? Like she's CIA, FBI. I don't know why.
Yeah, she's an FBI.
Yeah, that's not going to work out for him. That's why she's in that job, and you're just in Congress. Sad guy.
What is amazing to me about that is, like, this is an opportunity, and I guess maybe he will I guess, and maybe he's being celebrated in right-wing circles right now for this. But it was such an opportunity to sort of like actually inform. And all he's talking about, like he literally said, Hunter Biden has business deals that he's entangled with. Okay.
Yeah.
With whom? Like what exactly? Like we're going to need a little more information that Hunter Biden's involved in business.
I know he did like a really
$1 million,
bad magic trick
guys.
and was like, see, and people's like, no, we don't see. It's not that obvious.
I can't help but feel like Dr. Evil, like when it's like $1 million. It's like,
Yeah.
Okay, you're saying that Joe Biden and the Biden family has compromised the national like airspace for $1 million a few years ago. That's like over a few years. That's like $200,000 a year.
Everyone knows
like
what's
maybe
going
you
on.
could have gotten a little bit more. Why not just like write a book?
That's not generational.
Why not just get like some Chinese Communist Party member to write a book, put your name on it, and sell it for $2 million?
Yeah.
Like
I know. I also love when he goes, and you sit here in front of the Homeland Security Committee, as if
the Homeland.
I mean, we get it. It was created in 2002. I mean, the storied institution in American democracy.
And am I going to hear back on my resume?
this is the problem, though, that they have with making this stick as a scandal, is that the dollar figures, first of all of these payments happened at a time where Joe Biden was either exiting office or already out of office. And the idea that Joe Biden was going to become president in 2020, if there's any living individual outside of Joe Biden, and I'm not even sure he thought that thought that Joe Biden was going to be president, I would be shocked. It is clearly full-on nepotism. I am not in any way endorsing it. But it is, this guy was the vice president's son, or the former vice president's son. He must have connections. And I imagine Hunter was sharp enough to go like imply that he had connections, whether he had them or not. They don't know that the guy's got like all sorts of, personal issues. They just hire him because they hear the name, of course. But the idea that they're trying to sell to the American public that Joe Biden was a senator and a vice president for whatever it is, 150 years, so that his cousin could make $500,000 when he's out of office.
Yeah.
All he has to do is allow the Chinese takeover of America.
Simple.
No normal person buys into this at all. Like, I don't even think I think you could sell that, could you sell 30 or 40% of the Republican Party? Definitely, without a doubt. Like I say, no normal person. But the average person, it's one thing to say, Barack Obama is a secret socialist Muslim. And so he is like subtly trying to move America into more Sharia law or whatever it is. And then maybe get, people go like, well, I'm not sure I buy that, but he's black.
Yeah.
And so,
and
who knows what
Hussein is the middle name. So,
but this is just not. I think like if I was like in charge of the Democratic Party, like I would nominate. I would get Eli Crane to like. How can we get this guy on
Let's get him a sheriff's badge, but whatever the equivalent it is for the CIA. You are an honorary CIA agent, and that might appease him.
See if you could get him to wear his cowboy hat.
Just delightful. First of all, look, your old pal Jake has an affinity for lovable scamps. Good-natured scamps. If Hunter Biden was able to screw over a company that that thought he had family connections he could abuse, when in fact he did not have family connections that he could abuse, then Hunter Biden is a folk hero to me. Good. Screw them over. Take their money. Take your do-nothing job and bleed these pigs for all you can. And you have my full blessing. Hunter Biden, go use the fact that your father is president and screw over Elon Musk Screw over Bill Gates. Go convince Uber that you'll somehow use your connections with your father to get them a deal of some sort, and then just do nothing. And if your father accidentally signs something that favors them, write him an email with just a winky face. Good. 'Cause that's why. But was there any corruption? No. Did those hearings, have any of these hearings swayed independents? No. Do not forget that after the MAGA madness struck the United States in 2016, after that, we voted Trump out collectively. And then after that, January 6th happened. Americans are dumb as a box of rocks collectively, but we're not that dumb. Even a box of rocks is not going to be convinced that Trump or Trumpism is somehow healthy for the country. And we will help ourselves get through this faster if we are being evangelical about it. We have to get a lot more comfortable with preaching the good word of good governance to everybody, especially people that don't really pay attention to politics. The Democratic Party has been a big tent. We keep the door open for people that want to come in, but we need to also start inviting people in. That's how we're going to get past this. Showing clips like that, that's a great way to do it. Sure. And also, per the, I guess, the theme of today's show, every time you hear about a policy that you support, ask yourself what it does for the American people and what American people you can tell about it. A lot of this work is going to be exciting. A lot of it's going to be fun, but most of it is going to be dull conversations. Most of it is simply going to be establishing a reputation for the left wing that is what America has not historically believed about the left wing. This is the sensible party. This is the boring, reasonable party. If you want to show up, if the extent of your political activity is going to be to show up, make a sensible vote that will benefit you and your family, then you vote left wing. In the past, a lot of people have thought that you vote left if you want to help the whole world. And even though that's been true, the impression has been generally, vaguely, that you're sacrificing a bit of your own well-being to help everybody else. And that's what we have to address. No. You vote left if you're reasonable. You vote left if you are a grown-up. You vote left if you don't want to sacrifice your own well-being to hurt others. That is truly what the Republican Party has always been about, but it is undeniably now what the MAGA Republican Party is openly about. Giving up your own rights to take away the rights of others. We got to lampshade that, and above and beyond, we got to reach out to those boring people. We got to reach out to those not so brave people and convince them of what is true. If you want a well-run country, well, you vote left. And if you want a conspiracy theory fueled group of psychopaths questioning a CIA official about why they haven't been harassing American citizens, then you vote for those psychopaths. Patrick Thibodeau, thank you so much for the suggestion. Let's see what y'all have to say. Get out of here, Dewey, says Wireless Mike in quotes. You don't want none of this. Shit. That is one of my favorite bits from Will Ferrell movies. The going rate for spy balloon time is $273, good God, $1,000 per hour, says Mars Falcon. I believe it. Wireless Mike, in quotes. And I'm pretty sure your card was a 2 of hearts. Delightful. Oh, wonderful. Ooh, we got something from Dawned on Me here. Let's have a look. Ooh, Andrew Then with the $9.99 super chat. Thank you, my friend. Love the Majority Report, but FWIW, you're my second... Well, you're my second favorite left YouTube news host and look forward to watching this channel grow for a more active and reliable left. Hashtag Wicked Senate. Yes, I love it. Thank you so much. Somebody tell me what FWIW means. That is wonderful, and I appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Oh, that's a... Mars Falcon says, that's a DeSantis pudding emoji, Jake. All right, noted. Oh, God, the anti-corporatist says, Hunter? Nah, Coke is his deal. He's like DJ TJ that way. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Look, cocaine is I'm not going to knock anybody for being hugely addicted to cocaine. It's one of the most addictive substances out there, and it's just fantastic. No, I'm kidding. It's not that addictive. Also kidding, it is very addictive. But yeah, the kids of rich people. What can you do? They're gonna act like shitheads. We are at least now acknowledging that the way to go about this is to do institutional change. And if you're feeling rough, if it kind of sucks that right now there are millions and millions of Americans that are working their hardest to screw us all over, including themselves, take heart in one true fact. Their primary motivation for this is they're sick of the same things you're sick of. They're just getting lied to about what the cause is of them. But they're sick of the same things. They're sick of healthcare being too expensive. They're sick of not having enough money in their pockets, either because they themselves aren't paid enough or the people that should be their customers aren't paid enough. They're sick of energy being too expensive. They're sick of housing being too expensive. They're sick of getting shot in public or being afraid that their kids or grandkids are going to be shot in school. They're sick of living in a country where they are afraid for their safety. They're afraid that their rights are going to be taken away. And above all of Americans are sick of people who are wildly and unfairly powerful telling them how they're going to live their lives. Also take heart in the knowledge that we're in the age of the internet, where facts are shared more quickly. In fact, information is shared more quickly, whether or not it's true or false. And as we refine systems for separating the true from the false, the life cycle of these things is going to go faster and faster, and we will arrive at the true solutions, bit by bit. I'll tell you, there are not people that go over to the left and then back to the right. Not people who truly do this. In numbers, let me say this, because it's a huge country with hundreds of millions of people. There are not people that go from the right to the left and then back in significant numbers. But there's a hell of a lot of people that go from the right to the left. There's certainly a pipeline of people that go from the center to the right, But even when that happens, it's because they have developed an interest in solving those things that we are trying to solve. If you believe that we have the right answers, if you believe that you are currently working hard to genuinely help the country because you also hate these things and you also want them fixed, well then good news. The numbers will support your arguments in time. And on a long enough timeline, you will be victorious. What can you do? Today, I just want you to focus on the main thing we've been talking about. Take all the pitches you have, all the things you strongly believe in, and work on how you can pitch that to somebody from a selfish perspective. It's got to still be true. You have to still be talking about just the facts. But we're going to need people who don't like other people, who don't give a damn other people, also on our side. We need to take full advantage of the fact that we're right, not just the fact that we're righteous. Both are true, but we also happen to be correct. Let's lean into that for a while. Work on your pitches. Go from a selfish mindset, as in, not for you, but for the person you're pitching to. Why, for them, is this beneficial? It's real easy. It's real easy for Democrats to do this for trans people, gay people, black people, brown people, yellow people, red people. If there's ever green people, green people. It's real easy for lefties to do that because it's obvious. But it's just a little bit less obvious why Social Security is good for everybody. Go a little bit farther. Why is Medicare for all good for everybody? Are you literally paying more or less? At the end of the day, how much does it cost you? Doesn't matter what you call it. Is it taxes or is it a check that you have to write or a payment you have to have automatically withdrawn from your account? It's cheaper, Medicare for all. In fact, just about everything that the left pitches is cheaper for the average person in the United States. So work on your selfish pitches. That is how you're going to sway people. And by the way, if you get somebody going with you on these things, the high they will get once they come to the realization that the things they're supporting are good for everybody, the high they will get from being genuinely righteous, they're going to be worse than me. They're going to be the most insufferable lefties. They're going to go from being, the stormtroopers of the right to the Luke Skywalkers of the left. They're going to be leading the charge. Remember how we talked about how, like, the sense of joy you saw with, who's that gal? Liz Cheney, when she was tearing into the right. Like, she got to actually be in the moral right for the first time in her life. Like, she got to be morally correct for the first time in her life. And she was having a blast. The people you convince, even though you have to pitch it through selfish means at first, they're going to have a ball if you just get them on one or two things. Give it some thought. I really enjoyed this kind of show. I have no idea what it's going to look like in terms of editing. But it's fun just being loose and talking with you guys. I really like, I don't know, maybe we'll start doing the Friday Peace Talks thing where we take viewer suggestions like once or twice a day. It's fun. It's a fun way to do it. It feels more interactive. But and you guys are cracking me up in the comments. Anti-corporatist says, I just tell them it's like Costco. When we all shop together, we all save, and we get and we get hot dogs that cost $1.50. That's so true. Using analogies like that are fantastic. My word. Oh my God! I got another super chat. Oh, Scott Ward, Thank you so much, brother, for the $2 super chat. He says, sorry, it can't be more. Keep it up. Brother, you are the second highest donor today. Can't be more. Get out of here with that. That is a coffee I will greatly appreciate. I will toast to you when I drink it. But yeah, I had a blast with this today. Let me know if you think that we should be doing more viewer suggestions. I personally like it. We may do it regardless. I need to use the Google Doc instead of just emailing you, Jake. LMAO. Yeah, I mean, look, that most of that's on me. I'm very. I do very well when things don't change at all. But if there's any change whatsoever, it's a ridiculous clown show. But at least it's good for some chuckles. Well, I catch up. But I will catch up eventually, and I will see what you were talking about eventually. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to wrap up the live show, start working on those clips. I will see you tomorrow. We got a full Friday Peace Talks. Ooh, I'm looking forward to it. I got that energy, man. Invite people by. I would love to see somebody come by who wants to disagree with us. And tomorrow, if we can lure some right-leaning voters into the channel, let's work on that pitch. Remember the rules? If one person starts talking with them, everybody else leave them alone and let those two hash it out. And work on that pitch. They are there for our benefit. It's training. That's the purpose of Friday Peace Talks. Yes, it's also to convert. Yeah. But let's have no illusions. You're going to have more opportunities in your everyday life. And this is a place where we can train. We can see how other people work on swaying, and we can hone this down. For the rest of 2023, I want to keep doing this so that in 2024, we can go out with some organized, honed efforts. So invite folks down to Friday Peace Talks. Remember, we're going to try to pitch from a selfish perspective. And if they've got something that they think us dummies on the left ought to look at, okay, yeah, let's play. Have them play their embarrassing clip, and then I'll tear it to bits. All right. I will see y'all then. For the record, I do have the email back up and working. I'm sorry I did not answer for like a week. I logged myself out, and I am a knucklehead. Never lied to you about that. I'll see you soon. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake.